Welcome to Moving Iron with Casey Seymour and Greg Peterson, the podcast for anyone and everyone involved and interested in the business of ag equipment. If you want to understand what trends and market forces are impacting the price of your iron, you've come to the right place. Buckle up, it's time to move some iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast. This edition of Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by John Deere. I got Greg Machinery, Pete Peterson here to talk about what's happening in the marketplace. Greg, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Casey. How about you?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right. Just got back from the Moving Iron Summit. Had a good show and plenty of people out there. So looking forward to next year.
All my buddies were texting me. I'm sorry I couldn't be there, but it sounds like you had a great event down there.
Yeah, it was one of the biggest ones we've had. And, thanks to Heather Sarrett and her team over there at the events team putting that all together. And they do a great job
awesome.
Stringing those things together. So hats off to those guys for putting together another good Moving Iron Summit. So got to go to work now for next year. So
what number was that now? Was that 14, 15, 12?
That was 12.
Well, you created something pretty awesome there, my friend. That's hats off to you for all the industry. Think of all the connections that have been made from all the used equipment managers and execs with dealerships building bridges. So it's a very powerful thing you started there.
Well, thanks, Greg. I appreciate that. Now I enjoy doing it. It's a good time and it's a great way to bring everyone together. And everyone acts like their problems are a little bit different than everybody else's, but when you boil it all down, it's really the same stuff. No one's on.
I do have one story for you. So I'm sitting here up in Minnesota. I was swamped. I couldn't get away to come join you guys, but I know you brought in so many great auction partners from around the industry, U.S. and Canada. And one of our friends, Brian Roberson, with Rich and Rich out of North Carolina. Yeah, who I've known for a long time. I really like Brian. He's a good dude. He knows farmers. He knows dealers.
Somebody has to like him, Greg. That's what it comes down to.
Keeping it real. That's awesome. We don't want Brian.
No, I like Brian. Anyway. Brian is a good guy.
Brian texts me. I don't know who he's hanging out with. Maybe Aaron, some buds down there. But he's like, Greg, are you watching our sale? So they do a lot of online in the evening sales. They were kind of one of the first big auction companies to do a lot of these evening sales. They've done really well. He goes, are you watching this? So I hop on. I'm having pizza with my wife's family and watching football. And I'm like, holy crap. This sale, Rich and Rich Auctioneers, they were selling a lot of equipment. And as a consignment sale, I think, with a lot of red stuff. And I don't know if the guys were pullers. But that's the post I did on the Farmall 806. Mm-hmm. And it didn't really look, it looked just like an average 806, but it went for $16,000. So we had yesterday morning, we had 498 comments on our Facebook post about it. Bryant was on there, kind of representing the seller. And they also sold an 88 model International 4586, one of these big old vintage four-wheel drives, and it kind of looked, I would say, average, kind of beat up. I think the tires were kind of askew or whatever, but it brought 24 and a quarter, which that's the second highest price I've ever seen on a 4586. And they did have a pulling sled, an 86 Track Boss pulling sled that went for $56,500. So I don't know if that was from the same seller with these two red tractors, but it was a heck of a sale. So shout out to Bryant and Rich and Rich. They had a great Saturday night.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. I've known Bryant for a long time. I've known him for 10 years probably, but he's a character, and he does work pretty hard for what he's doing over there. So congratulations on that.
He loves. I've had the joy over the 3.5 decades, Casey, getting to meet a lot of people on the equipment side, and it's fun when you run across someone like Bryant, or our guy Aaron, that just love what they do. They love the business. They love equipment.
Yep.
And for those dealerships and those auction companies that have folks like that working with farmers selling their equipment, what a tremendous asset. All that experience and knowledge and passion they bring to bear. So Bryant, in this case, helping market a sale like that. That's why you get those prices.
Right. Yeah, that makes all the difference in the world. And it's something that you see. It comes out, you know what I mean? Like the better you market it, the better it looks, the more story you tell. All that comes along with that. It all comes to fruition there at the end. So
guys like Brian and Aaron, they're, it always struck me. Now, it's my take as I drop in and visit with you guys. Like we came and filmed with you out in Nebraska years ago, and you can just tell people who are living it. And so the phone there's no like 5 o'clock, I'm done for the day.
Yeah.
It's like they're just grinding out of their passion for what they're doing, and that comes through to farmers. And to me, when I see that, it makes me smile. And it's, as we were raising our daughters, we always tried to, teach them about, take a long-term view of things. And so again, that back to your moving iron, that's what when you started that event years ago, it's easy to get caught up in the short term if you're a dealer and just kind of go, okay, well, here's how we are right now. But you created an environment for people to exchange ideas and try to be better, which is just really, really good business.
Yeah, I think, I created that as much for me as anybody else, because Lord knows I don't have all the answers. So it's a easy place to go. So, it's easy when you have you have a group of friends, and you just go back to that same group of friends over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you build a pretty good relationship with those friends, and they get to be more and more honest with you as the years go on. Right. And the nice thing about that is you pull a new friend into that group, and you don't have the echo chamber changes a little different pitch, you know what I mean? And you can start hearing some things from other people that maybe you knew all along, but you have a chance to really double check that and make sure that you're not off the reservation to speak.
Yeah. And I don't know if we've talked about it, Casey, but if you boil it down, the thing I love most about this sector that you've covered for many years, and I've done my thing for almost 36 years now, is that the farming and equipment business is still personal.
Yeah.
And technology is awesome. I mean, we've got our website, 100 and some thousand pieces for sale. Thank you for shopping at our website, folks. We appreciate it. But it's still personal. So when I see a guy like Aaron putting out his videos on social, like just talking about a tractor that came in, you see Aaron's personality come out and talking about it. And he'll just shoot it straight. So if the thing's got issues, he just says it. Mm-hmm. And that kind of trust can be built in a lot of ways. And, moving iron is a chance to get to know, people across 5, 6, 8, 10, 15 states away. That's just good business for dealers to send their people there because, of those personal connections you're going to make that are going to help move equipment.
Yep. And I think the other side of that too is, I had a lot of when I was, working the deer dealership for as long as I did. Of course, you have a ton of deer contacts, but I found the Case, IH, and New Holland, and AGCO, and those guys, Fendt and Massey and guys like that, to be just as important as anything. Because trading equipment around, I got a Massey, you got a deer, let's just swap around. Or hey, can you give me some build codes? Or hey, what would you price this for? Because and it's not your brand. You know what I mean? You don't know the nuances. You know what I mean? So you can get that little bit of information from somebody, and it makes a big difference in how you approach it.
Yeah. For any young listeners out there in your audience, Casey, that are in the equipment business or even just farmers, young farmers, I listen to I'm an old guy. Casey's not an old guy yet, but what you just described, Casey, the value, now you got to pick up the phone, you make the connection with the person, but then being comfortable enough to say, I don't know, and reach out to John or Bill or Susie or whoever. That is a life skill that is just tremendously important. So as you're farming, we're all competitive and but at the same time, we're generally speaking in ag, we're kind of independent people, very independent people, but breaking down that barrier and talking to people is just, you learn so much. And that's what I've loved most about auctions over the years is, I'll stand there and video things and hey, I brought $100,000, cool. Machine Repeat, I'll write a column about it, but it's the 10 conversations I had over coffee or pie at the auction that helped me learn what guys in Iowa or North Dakota are thinking and feeling. And of course, right now in farming, there's, it's the news. I mean, I don't say news, that's a bad word. It's just the pressure is just, it is what it is. And it's, we can look at numbers, but then when you hear and talk to people, you really get the kind of the more complete picture. And it's good for us to make new connections and talk to people. It's healthy.
For sure.
especially in stressful times.
Yep, for sure. And I think that's the whole part of it, right? What are you doing? What am I doing? What's working for you? What's not working for you? And in whatever industry you're in, right? It doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
And you always get some good feedback that way. So absolutely looking forward to that. So every year I look forward to it. It's fun.
This is why I like talking with you on Moving Iron, Casey, because you're cool going different directions. Like we haven't talked about any trends or anything yet, but it's this other stuff can be, a lot of
It's
times
just as important. Yeah.
or most times more valuable. And again, at Moving Iron or at an auction or whatever, or top producer event for Farm Journal. That's why even when dollars are tight, that's why you go to those events, especially when times are tight. One, to make connections, know you're not alone. Two, to learn new things to help you better. And it's good for our souls.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. As you're looking at the marketplace, though, right now, I mean, actually, I had a couple guys talk to me about this while we were there, and they were talking about, oddly enough, how high the inventory they had for grain carts were, and I'm like, grain carts? What are you talking about? So I just jumped out and took a look at the market real quick. I was like, man, there are a fair amount of grain carts out there right now. So, Greg, as you're looking around right now, what do you see happening in the grain cart market?
I think on the auction side, the pricing the edges come off a bit from back. I would say late 24 through March of 25, we saw some stronger auction prices on grain carts. And now, again, I've been doing this almost 36 years, so not unusual. Ironically, you would think that auction prices would go up on grain carts and harvest equipment coming through late summer into fall, but that has not usually been the pattern. It's the opposite. Usually they get soft. Now this year you factor in where we're at with corn and beans and, just the realities setting in, like, who's buying our beans? And so grain carts, the pricing has softened a bit. See the same thing a little bit with late model combines here the last 6 weeks. But it'll be interesting through the end of the year, November, December, see if we get any kind of jump. I think there was a little jump end of last year. I remember standing at a sale. It was really cold. It was like December 3rd down the road. For me, it was in Austin, Minnesota. Hamilton Maring Group had the sale. Andrew Hamilton and Matt Maring, good dudes. It's a farm sale. I filmed the whole thing. And what I left, number one, there's always one thing that's in my head, like, oh my God, wow. And on that one, I think it was a Brent 2596 on tracks for $170,000. And there were 3 or 4 carts. And that was amazing. And so very nice farm sale. And again, I lose track of what a brand new one retails for.
They're amazingly expensive now.
You're right.
$250,000, you know what I mean? It's amazing what they cost.
I'm still waiting for more of those mother bins to show up on the auction front. I know you know those guys.
Yeah.
Amazing. As I look at recent prices, Casey, just to give you a few here, I know, actually on the sale, I think we talked about it last week, where I was up in Mossley, Ontario by Shackleton Auctions. Really nice farm sale, mostly 10-plus-year-old stuff. That's where that 96.30 went crazy high, and the 84.30 went high. Had a S680 that went high. They had a Brent 1394. Went for 102.5 Canadian, converted. It was like 74,602 US. Had the roll tarp, the big 1,000 PTO. I don't know what year it was, but 74.6 on that one basically. And then if you want to talk the other end of the grain carts, I did see one, just an A&L 650T, just sell for $625.
$6 dollar a bushel, almost, right?
There you go. That's how much does a weigh category? And, God bless it. I don't care whether it's 170K or 625. We just put the prices into the website. So
yep.
That's when that one brought. That was September 24th out of Carlton, Nebraska.
Right on. Yeah, the grain cart thing it's a weird animal, right? And I think they're kind of a creature of what we see happen right now. As prices have gotten where they're at, they just run them longer. And I used to always have there was a guy I used to work with, and this same customer trade in their grain carts every year. And he goes, this guy runs these things down to where he can only auger grapefruits. And it was, it was always, you have to put new flighting in, the whole deal, it just, and sometimes the flighting was so bad, you put the auger and the flight, just the whole thing, right? It was just the whole deal. And they were always beat up by the time you traded them in. And I used to always joke with him. I was like, yeah, but you still give him a premium for him every year. So I guess grapefruit business must be pretty good, and so we'd go back and forth about that over and over again. But it's amazing to watch where grain carts are at now, and the amount of bushels you can run a grain cart. How much capacity they have. So just looking at it from an efficiency standpoint is getting to be a bigger and bigger animal as you look at these size of these machines.
Well, the size, and then you factor in now we're stretching this out now on the grain side, the pressure with corn and beans where they're at price wise. I've absorbed more podcasts recently of farmers beginning to talk more about the age of their equipment fleet. Mm-hmm. And, that was one thing as I talked to the Wall Street crowd, they're always leaning forward saying, okay, Machinery Pete, when are sales of new equipment going to tick up and what's it going to take? And when do you think that's going to happen? And it's like, well, it's not rocket science, but corn and beans, when there's some positivity and a good story to tell there, that's going to start to make the difference. Dropping a quarter point in interest rates, that ain't going to make, new sales rocket overnight. But on the topic of running your equipment longer, these podcasts I've been listening to are interesting. They're kind of collectively going, my dad, when he was my age, he didn't have this equipment fleet that we have now. Now, we do it in the name of productivity. Farms have got bigger. When you got to go, you go. But when you're stretching now we're into year 2 to 3 or whatever, looking at beans aren't going up 2026 ahead. That belt just keeps getting tighter and tighter as you watch your dollars. Guys actively thinking about, do we have everything we have is like 3 years old or 4 years old,
right?
And it's all bigger. So again, I think that's why is no new is being sold now, or outside of the livestock dairy side. Guys are just trying to stretch their equipment fleet out, and it's and that gets interesting because then you've got what you described of the guy running the grapefruits through no flighting left. That's the 625. But then you got the other end when even though dollars are tight, what people look for on the used market is the stuff that was obsessively cared for.
Okay. And
that's bringing a premium now. And that's when I tell that to the Wall Street crowd, they're like, well, why is a 15-year-old tractor like 9630 last week in Ontario, why is that bringing so much? And it's this new and used always connected at the hip.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's a high supply, like you said, with good used grain carts out there, that guess what drives down the price on the auction price on the used one. So fascinating market to study.
Yeah, and it's I always talk about the commoditization of equipment, right? When I first started this business, and there may be just a little bit of this out there still, but it's nothing like it was when I first started. Like a lot of people trade tractors in, like this is my dad's tractor, this is my mom's tractor, this is grandpa's tractor, and they weren't talking like old vintage tractors they had in the shed. These were everyday tractors. This is my grandpa. Now it's like this is my anywhere between 8 to 6 wheel input that I use on my farm. And then that's how it really starts to look at it. And you're starting to see that reflect in pricing when you look at auction value. Auction value, again, but also the internet's made the world a small place too. So it's a different animal. But when you look at whatever is worth on a consignment sale, it is what it is, right? That's going to fluctuate and ebb and flow with the economy, things that are happening in the economy, things that are happening geopolitically, things that are driving change in the marketplace. All those things are going to start popping up, right? And you start to see that come through. Whereas there was some of that 20 years ago, but there was a lot more That was Jim's farm, so we know it's going to be good. And we live in our little 100 mile radius world that we live in. Jim's stuff's always goes for a good number. Well, internet's kind of taken that Jim premium away a little bit, right? And it's not nearly as the guy 3 states away doesn't care about Jim, who Jim was and how Jim really took care of stuff, unless you can document that and tell that story when you're doing it. And I think that's what we're starting to see. You're starting to see more and more storytellers talk about equipment now than you've seen in the past.
Well, when, I suppose it's like when corn and beans 3 years ago were where they're at. It's easy to sit back and take the orders.
Right.
New equipment or used stuff flying off the lot.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's different. So sometimes, I guess any market you look at when times are difficult, we can all sit around and yak about it. Or you can try to figure out how to make it better. And that's what I've been, just trying to represent, like you said, with the storytelling. So I guess a couple things, Casey. One is that, I've always loved, and what made me start when I was 23 years old, start doing this, compile these auction prices, is just the brutal honesty of them.
Yeah.
And now people say, well, auction price, you're talking honesty. Not every auction company, they all roll different. But my point is, you put an asset up for sale and it brings what it frickin' brings.
Right.
So on that same sale, our good friend Brian, we're, giving them all these props, and it's awesome. But hey, it's tough to sell cotton equipment right now for the reasons we all know.
Yeah.
So on that same sale, he had a John Deere. I don't know if it was a 70. I don't know the models. I don't live in the cotton equipment quite as much, but it was an older John Deere cotton picker, and it was like a 7760 or something. About $6,100. This big, huge rig. Mm-hmm. Now, times are tough. Tough. And then it's not what the guys, they want the newer, the bigger, the all-in-one machine. And this was maybe a little bit, machine's been passed by, and it was up for auction that day. And on that auction, it brought $6,100 on the same auction where you got an 806 going for $16K.
Yep.
Now, those are 2 data points. Neither of them is wrong. They are what they are. But it's fascinating to track it. And, I try to look at it too. Again, my machine repeat theory of opposites. So if a 3-year-old combine is selling a little low right now, or a grain cart versus where it was, being aware of that movement in the hard cash pricing, to me is an action point. And it's not built on one example, because one of one, whatever. But when you start seeing 5, 6, 10, 12 of them, which is what I try and write about, like, wow, we're seeing this uptick in these right now in the pre-def stuff. It's going crazy. Which, if you have an extra one you're thinking of selling, it would be an excellent time to sell and get max value out of that, because they're just worth more now. Conversely, if you're shopping, again, look at your local dealer, check out that lot, and you've got some good buying opportunities here through the end of the year into 26. Yeah. And the thing, and we've talked about it a lot, is the thing you have to be careful about is think of a rainbow. Okay. Don't just look at what's right in front of you. A year from now, look how things have changed just 2-3 years when we were having these conversations. There was no used inventory, and there was a wait list on new equipment. So what goes around comes around. And what you don't want to do from a buying standpoint is you have to be buying at the wrong end of the rainbow, basically.
Right.
When right now you can get value now. But that requires moving in opposite directions from everybody else. They're all pulling back. That's going to make me be more aggressive.
Yeah.
And so, again, easy for me to say I'm sitting in my basement, but I've been sitting in my basement for 36 years monitoring this stuff. And just go and look at machine repeat auction prices from the end of 14 through 15 into early 16, end of 16, early 17 on a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old tractor or combine. And you're going to look at those prices and go, oh, if I only would have. That's what I'm saying. Right. Now is a chance to grab that because look what's at the top level. There's more layoffs last week at the plant level.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's exactly what we talked about. When it turns, you know what's going to happen, and that's the other end of the rainbow. If you're going to be a buyer, that's going to be, can you get it? And you're going to pay a lot for it.
Yep. That is true. And you're right. Right now is probably the best time if you can go out and get something. Right now is the best time to do that. No doubt about that. So,
Well, the data piece, again, last year was only the second time in 22 years I've seen auction prices go soft in Q4.
yep.
It's a very rare occurrence. Now, there's not a lot right now that's making me say things are going to rocket higher. So, again, if you're able, it's a pretty good time to be aggressive, I think.
Yep, for sure. Well, probably a good place to stop, Greg. Folks want you to come talk or whatever, show up at their auction or whatever, just go to the contact page, machinerypete.com, right?
Just hit us up, machinerypete.com, or hit me on Twitter. And I think I've got 4 or 5 auctions we'll be hitting and doing a lot of filming at coming up. So it's going to be a fun end of the year.
Awesome, Greg. Well, glad you can make it this week. We'll talk again next.
Sounds great, Casey. Have a good one.
All right. Stay tuned for more Moving Iron podcasts after these messages.
Well, there they are, mocking you.
See you next year, loser.
That weedy area that's got you thinking, man, I hate that spot. Wish I'd sprayed better. Get the last laugh with a sprayer upgrade from John Deere. Precision upgrades that can increase your sprayer's performance, like ExactApply, advanced nozzles to give you more control at more speeds. It's just one of the many precision upgrades you'll find at johndeere.com. Now, let's see who's laughing.
All right, welcome back to Moving Iron Podcast Markets. Got Chip Nellinger here from Blue Reef Agri-Market to talk about what's going on in the marketplace. Chip, how you doing today?
Hey, doing well, Casey. How you doing?
Doing good. Had the WASDE report come out today, and the ending stocks report for the month of October. They found some extra bushels that they didn't find the previous WASDE report. Kind of messed around a few things, so we're seeing some reaction to the marketplace. But I guess as you're watching this, Chip, anything jump out to you that you might have found a little bit surprising?
Well, pretty ho-hum report other than corn. The corn stocks came in well above expectations. What, $1,532,000,000. That was like 200 and some million bushels above the average estimate. It was even above the high estimate. So a little bit of a curveball there in the corn market, showing, a couple 100 million more bushels than expected. The bean number came in just a touch under average expectations. The wheat number a little bit higher. But you put that all in the mix here, and on top of kind of a neutral to a bearish report, you've got this looming government shutdown. I guess there's several hours here yet, after we record this, that they could still figure something out. But it looks like we're 99% of the way towards a government shutdown. So you had a bearish crop report today. It wasn't a crop report, quarterly stocks report. You had the end of the month, end of a quarter. So you had some fun selling in there. And then you've got this government shutdown. And so it's pretty bearish attitude here across the commodity markets. It didn't really affect the equity market much, but, it was a nice excuse with a bearish stocks report, especially in corn, to sell the grain market off today. Had to kind of mixed result in the livestock side, but, a little bit fearful of what could happen here with the government shutdown, because the important part of that is, from a grain perspective, we're supposed to have the October crop report on the 9th. That is really much needed by the market to figure out what the USDA is seeing out there as far as yields go. If this government shuts down even for a couple of days, I would think that puts the October crop report in real jeopardy of not happening. And then we'd have to wait till the November crop report a month plus out. And so that could kind of put the grain markets here in a little bit of kind of no man's land, purgatory, just kind of left to grind with not a lot of news and harvest, advancing. And that's not a good combination when you throw that uncertainty in there about this potential government shutdown. So kind of an ugly day across the board today in the grain markets.
Yeah. So there's, the whole geopolitical thing starting to fire back up again with what, Russia just testing how what they can and can't get away with. And we're seeing stuff move all over the place. So it's just a weird, crazy time. Take a look at oil though. And it's been it's just a weird, it's just in a weird last 2 years. It's just kind of been in these ranges, right? So you get this 60 to $65 range for a while. Then it goes 65 to 70 and moves up to 75. Then kind of works its way back down to 60 and goes back up again. We're on the low end of that right now. If you look where West Texas crude's at like $62 right now, where it closed out today. It's kind of been kind of here and there and everywhere. But I guess, Chip, as you're watching oil right now, it just feels like they've kind of found the sweet spot to keep the world economy where they want it to be at, and then also make the same as much money as they can make, and without throwing the world into complete turmoil. Looking at this, what are your thoughts on oil right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it seems like we're at a pretty good equilibrium point here in the low to mid 60s. Now, late last week, we did see the crude oil market kind of push up and kind of broke out to the upside of, maybe a 2-3 month trading range in here. And it looked like maybe we were headed higher. I think that was kind of what you said. The geopolitical situation right now is not very good, right? I mean, we don't have anything heading towards a peace in the Black Sea area, Russia, Ukraine. You've got some Middle East tensions. You've got all kinds of things happening out there. And so I think the crude oil market kind of was threatening to rally a little bit. And then early this week, you had some talk that maybe OPEC might be ready to increase production. That really kind of tanked the crude oil market earlier this week. But it just does seem like we're kind of stuck in the low to mid 60s right now. I do think, though, that the risk is more to the upside than the downside, just because of the geopolitical situation out there. I hope it doesn't happen. There seems like there's more and more talk about, maybe we're eventually going to get involved potentially in some way, shape, or form, more involved than we already are with this Russia-Ukraine situation. And, I think if that were to happen, that probably adds some risk premium to the energy markets. But, one good thing is here with where corn prices are at and basis at harvest, ethanol margins are still holding together, even though crude oil has kind of been a little bit lackadaisical in rallying here. So, from a margin standpoint on the ethanol side, I think we're holding things together there. But this looks like crude oil is kind of just heading sideways here. But I think that the risk of additional rallying or additional upside is probably greater because of the geopolitical situation than the downside is, because it doesn't look like there's any major slowdown happening, especially domestically. But, the world economy seems like it's holding itself together. There's cracks that show up here and there, but, it's an interesting market we've got on a lot of different fronts. But the energy markets seem like they're just content to go sideways for a little bit, but they definitely have one eye on, the world, geopolitical situation for sure.
For sure. Let's jump over and talk about hogs here a little bit. Since, middle of August, we've seen a steady climb up. We've seen some really good numbers here of late from where they fell off. They're kind of back where they fell off in the middle of the month, and they kind of started working their way back up again. As you're looking at hogs right now, is this just kind of one of those last couple of days have been kind of rough on them, but I mean, just looking at them, is this kind of one of those end of the month, end of the quarter type of situations? Do you think, is there any fundamentals out there that show hogs should be doing anything different than what they have been doing?
Well, we had a hogs and pigs report out late last week, and it did show in a lot of different categories. These hogs and pigs reports that come out quarterly they're hard to gauge. They're hard to predict. There's a lot of different, 8 or 10 different classes of weights and farrowing intentions that, they put numbers out on. So it takes a lot to digest that, but almost every category was down at the low end of expectations or below the lowest estimate ahead of the report. So, the numbers would tell you, especially the back month stuff, out in the future, 6+ months, it does look like maybe there's, from the numbers shrinking a little bit, that there's some possibilities that we could have some nice rallies out there. As you look at where we're at right now, closing the third quarter of the year, prices held together at a pretty high historical level. So even though we've seen some weakness here in a short run, I think some things are looking good for some continuing strength in the hog sector, getting some benefit from still the, near record high prices of beef. I think that's helping the demand side on the pork. And the hogs and pigs report last week really would, have you a little bit optimistic that we could hold things together going into the first half of the new year and the last quarter of 25, I guess, as well. So, as you look at where we're normally at historically over the last 25, 30 years, we're still at a pretty high historical level here, within the very top percentile of the price range that you normally look at when we're going into October here.
So cold storage report, as you look at that, we've seen they kind of fluctuate a little bit back and forth, where you've seen, hey, we've got more cold storage than we thought we did. Now we don't have as much as we did, and it kind of fluctuates back and forth month to month. Seems to tell a different story every time they bring it up. As you look at that and you start looking at where cattle prices are, it's just hard to point out there and say, hey, we need to start rebuilding the herd here, because it's just those dollars and cents that are associated with those cows and steers and what and everything that's going to, and the weights that we see coming across the scales. It's really pointing towards, I guess the question I'm trying to ask you is, do you feel like the hesitation in the marketplace you see right now and some of the movement that you're seeing, is it, I'm afraid to get caught with this last batch of cows before the price goes sideways? Do you feel some of that pressure right now?
Yeah, the cattle market's shaping up to be really interesting here going into the last quarter of the year. The cash cattle market seems like it's drifted a little bit lower. We're pretty weak in here. The box beef market in general has had a nice correction here lower. And you're at some levels technically on the chart that if we can't hold things together, or we continue to see a little bit of cash weakness into the end of this week or the first part of next week, you could maybe do some technical damage and maybe create a situation where these commodity funds would want to get out of some of their length going into the end of the year. But to counter that, you've got the feeder cattle market just screaming straight up. I mean, they tried to break the futures, but as you look at all the reports out at sale barns out in the country, I mean, people are just coming to the table to buy feeders, essentially still at record highs when you look at cash feeder cattle prices. Well, you've got that disconnect. Fat cattle and that segment of the industry looks a little weak, like it could have some downside. But the feeder cattle out here just screaming. Today's a case in point where at one point we were lower on the day, and then you end up almost $5-6 off of the session lows in feeder cattle, and that holds the live cattle together a little bit. So it's shaping up to kind of be an interesting end of the year here in the cattle market. And there can be a disconnect. I think right now, those feeder prices are helping to support the live cattle prices. But if that keeps going and you kind of keep those markets divorced of each other, it's not a good setup for feedlot people, right? Because, as people are paying up record amounts for the feeders, you're buying into needing those deferred live cattle to rally in order to turn a profit on those cattle. And that's worked for a couple years, but there's going to be a point in time where it doesn't work. And that's going to get really painful for those people that, buy these high price feeders. So you're setting up for some real volatility going into the end of the year and the first quarter of next year. The next 6 months, I think, could be a real wild ride in cattle. Not that we've seen the high, but I think you could continue to see, people pay up too much for feeder cattle, and then the live cattle market not rally enough, and you're looking at some paper losses, several $100s a head, which we haven't seen for a while, and that could really put a crimp on producers who have made a lot of money feeding cattle. And finally, the cow-calf guy has kind of been healed up a little bit the last couple of years, and so it's a little bit ominous what could happen out here because of the disconnect between feeder cattle prices and live cattle prices. So it could really be a vicious end of the year here over the next 3 months. Interesting timing with, the end of the third quarter and just getting ready to start the fourth quarter off here, and these funds holding really big long positions, and really across the board they have a pretty healthy position on the long side in hogs, and essentially just at record length in feeders, and still a big long position in live cattle. So they don't stay married to those positions forever. When they want out, it can get pretty ugly for a period of time.
Well, and that was, you answered my question, my horribly worded question, the way I was looking at it, because it's like one of those things where they keep going back in and put it all in black, and then hope that lands, and then they come back in, and it just feels like as this price, as we keep watching these prices, we've been talking about this for 18 months now, about on here about that, but it's feeling like
Well,
the nervousness in the marketplace is just like, okay, one more, all right, one more, and then, but you got to keep doing it. Like you can't not do it, right? So as you watch these things come together, it just feels like the nervousness in the marketplace is like, this is the pot that I'm going to get stuck with, and I'm going to get.
well, you're talking about so much money now, so
Yeah.
much capital that's invested in the cattle industry now with, at record prices. And that's what I was talking about. There's so much at record high feeder cattle prices. You've got so much invested per animal that, if things don't go quite right, if you don't have these deferred live cattle rally, all of a sudden you could be staring at $400, $500, $600 a head losses. That's a splash of cold water for these people that have had a couple years of really good, turns, buying high price feeders and then having the fat cattle rally to catch up and make a profit. And, that doesn't have to be the case going forward. So that's my fear going into the end of the year, first part of next year, is that, if we get the right conditions set up, it could get a little bit ugly here. And, I think producers have to be really careful, from the feedlot side and the cattle feeding side, especially with feeder prices where they're at. It could get really volatile. And if a guy's not real careful, you give a lot of equity back fast in this environment that it looks like we're facing right now.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Chip, good place to stop. Folks want to reach out to you, get more information about Blue Reef Agri-Marketing. What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, best way is just call our office, our main office in Morton, Illinois. It's 309-550-7213. You can also check our website out. It's bluereef.ag.
Well, Chip, appreciate you being on, man. We'll catch you again next time.
All right. Thanks for having me on, Casey.
All right, stay tuned for more Moving Iron podcasts after these messages.
Looking for more accuracy, more productivity from your current planter? Let's get exact with precision upgrades from John Deere. Start with Exact Emerge and get accurate singulation and spacing at 10 miles per hour. Or choose Exact Shot to promote early root growth and cut fertilizer costs. And with Furrow Vision, save time by verifying seed depth right from your cab. Visit johndeere.com/planner upgrades and see why nothing runs like a Deere.
All right, welcome back to Moving Iron Podcast. Aaron filling back on to talk about what's happening in the marketplace. Aaron, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm very good.
Good, man. Fresh off the Moving Iron Summit, and I love doing that thing, man. It's you get to see everybody. On top of that, plus you get a feel for what's going on in the marketplace. And I think this year was there was plenty to talk about as far as feelings go during the marketplace.
Yeah, for sure. I don't go to any like new machinery meetings or precision ag meetings, or let's just be honest, any other meeting ever throughout the year. But I got to venture a guess that it's you just can't beat the Moving Iron Summit.
I like to think so. I like to think that's a good meeting. People like to attend. And it was. So this year, a little breakdown on that real quick. This year there was 79 dealer groups, 145 dealer people-ish, something like that. And there were 235 or 40 total people. And then, but one of the cool things about that was 51% of the people there were there for the first time. So it was a pretty cool deal to see everybody. A lot of new faces from different dealerships. So it was good to see that.
And all sizes and ranges.
Yeah.
Like single store New Holland dealer at the table with 40 John Deere store dealer.
Right. Yeah. And that was the thing I've always wanted to have happen. I always wanted to make sure that it's an open forum to whoever wants to come, because whether you have 100 stores or one store, your problems are the same. Right. And the issue, it's just scale, right? And that's the scale that you have to talk about. And I love it when people say, yeah, but I'm a little bit different here because I've got, this many stores and you have that many stores. I'm like, do you have used equipment? Yep, I sure do. Well, then you have the exact same problem that I have, right?
And honestly, throughout the week, what you hear is that conversation backwards.
Yeah.
I like to think. I am thrilled I have 2 stores and not 30. That all 30 stores all have the same problem. Take that times 30 or take that times 2. And, being a little bit smaller is okay right now.
Right.
5 years ago, he was probably, God, I wish we had 10 stores, and now.
What's all about how some of the conversations so if you guys haven't picked up on this, we're talking about takeaways from the Moving Iron Summit, the conversation.
And not just cups, hats, and shirts.
That's right.
Different
That's
takeaways.
Right. That's right.
Not the ones in your bag.
If you want a new wardrobe, come to Moving Iron Summit and you can get all the stuff you want. You can all the culinary things you could look for as well as apparel. So
the biggest thing though would be drinking apparatuses and golf balls.
Tons of golf balls. Plenty of golf balls out
Must
there.
be at a sales meeting. I don't know. Everybody brings golf balls.
Yeah. One of the things that, back to that conversation we were having there, it all comes back to economies of scale, right? So, and the one thing I heard overwhelmingly come across there was if the price is right and it fits into the marketplace and it makes sense to what's going on around you. Again, that's the thing we've talked about a million times, that ratio between where is retail value and where is auction value, and what's that space in between, right?
I like to think
if it fits in that ratio like it's supposed to, it sells. And I had so many people come to me and say, hey, that ratio you talk about, we were in that ratio, and the stuff that we had, it's selling.
Yeah.
Even in a down market. Now I'm not going to say or saying it's flying off the shelf by any means, and they're not having to throw in some interest waivers and those kind of things and do some extended warranties and blah, 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 blah. But I could tell you right now that if you're trying to get, if the market's 100,000, you're trying to get 125,000 for it, it's just not going to happen. Right? No. It's just not going to happen. I mean, and then it won't happen in good times. And the only time that happens is when,
unless you're doing a buy one, get one.
Well, yeah, but the only time that really happens is the only time in history that we ever saw that happen was COVID, right? Hey, market's 125, but I want 150 for mine. Well, how come? Because, I have the one that's available. That's what I have, right? So do you want it or not? That was, I hope we never see that again, right?
No,
because
handling the calls for the dealership and stuff, guys would call and be like, I will give you $5,000 more than that. It was like selling houses in the front range.
Yeah.
Well, we're asking 255. I'll give you 290.
Yeah.
Why?
I like to think
exactly. Nah, I think I'll probably take 295. That's probably what I'll take now.
Right.
It's like you're arguing backwards, It's a reverse sell.
Throwing that out there, there's money on the table. Like, are we having an auction or?
I like to think
it's so. But I think the biggest takeaway I took from what was out there was really two things. One was, if it's priced correctly, it sells.
I like to think
we are. Even The Economist said this to some extent. That was my big takeaway from when The Economists were talking and other speakers up there talking. And Jennifer Coleman did a great job talking about kind of this farmer of the future and what that looks like and how those things play together. And then The Economist talked a lot about kind of where we're at in the trough. And what I took away from all this was, for as bad as it is,
I like to think
it's really not going to get any worse, right? But it's not going to get any better either,
right?
And that was at least for the foreseeable next 12 to 18 months, right? And that's kind of what they talked about, and which is falls in line with what we've been saying on here
for sure,
and those kind of things. But
I like to think
not that I'm some kind of economic powerhouse that these guys, like Casey said.
I did hear last week you're used equipment guru though, so
that's a stretch, but
I like to think.
But if you're thinking about going through this process, and it's something I've said a lot, if you're in a position to buy something right now, I think you can't beat buying something right now. Where the prices are at now, your leverage you have to run a deal and go through that process and work your way through those things, it's definitely something that you should take a look at. Now, another conversation we had a lot, and we've had a lot of conversations about this, where especially in cotton country, was the amount of folks that are farmers that are out there that are in trouble, and then the banks are pulling way back on what they're saying, which I get. 60-cent cotton, 65-cent cotton doesn't really pay a whole lot, right? So that's having a big issue there. But as I look towards the end of the year,
I like to think
a lot of the conversation with folks were, hey, prices are stable now, but at the end of the year, if there's a big auction and big auctions start rolling in, we're going to see reset. And the conversation I asked, I probably had that conversation 10 times in groups of 5 or 6 people. And I'd ask them, like, okay, so are you taking stuff to auction? Well, no. Are you reading it? No. And the answer was always no.
Right.
So I talked to probably
I like to think
half to 3/4 of the folks about that same situation, and none of them were taking anything to auction, right?
Right.
And
if
you think about that, so I go, okay, so if none of you were taking stuff to auction, where are these big sales going to come from? Who's having these big dump? And so, well, you never know until you get towards the end of the year. And my response was, if you're selling 40 combines and 30 tractors in one day, you've already made that decision.
Yeah.
Right now, and you're doing it in October, late October, early November, December timeframe. Like you've made that decision, right?
Well, and think about it. Even last week already, we're at the end of September.
Yeah, exactly.
You got a solid month before it's even going to show up online.
Right.
The listing, let alone anything happening.
Yep.
You're at the end of October. That means the auction would have to be at earliest mid-November.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that decision's already been made unless everybody went home and decided, yep, mid-December, let's have an auction. But you're right. There's talking to counterparts across the country. Nobody is jumping into the auction world to let's purge this and get it out of here, because so much of that was done early on that it's now, okay, here's our new path of digestion that we have established, and this is what we're doing.
Yep. So back to the auction thing, like when I look at the auction market right now, where I see pressure on any pressure that's going to come from the auction market to me is the amount of retirement sales, retirement sales that you see out there, which is a bad situation, man. I mean, there's guys are getting forced to put stuff into these auctions.
Like we talked about that a little bit. The 47-year-old retirement sale.
Yeah. And so as you watch some of this stuff happen, to me, this is why I think we're not going to see things get worse. Is those are retirement sales, those are estate sales, those are farm sales. Typically, those are the prices that you see right about retail. It's not just a smidge lower than retail, right? So those auction values are going to keep the price up, and things are going to move forward. And, there's tiers to auction values, and that's at the high end of the tier, right? And I think as you watch this move forward, that's going to be some of the saving grace towards the end of the year. That being said, if even if someone does show up tomorrow with, hey, I'm selling 40 combines and 30 tractors, and I'm going to sell 80 heads, and we're just going to have a $15 million. Well, I guess that would be way more than 15 million. It'd be, I got 60 million out there. We're going to dump in one day, type of thing. I still don't think
talk about that as an inventory level.
I know, right?
Not what gets sent to auction.
I know, but the crazy thing about that is I don't know that changes the trajectory of the market. That was a one day deal. Now, if you see 4 of those pop up,
right,
that changes the trajectory of the market. But one's not going to change the overall marketplace, right? I mean, because one auction is not.
And we have seen all year. I know I've talked about it all year. The amount of last minute stuff. Everything has been last minute. Big purchases are last minute. I don't need it on my financials. Interest is, 5 or whatever. It's not 1 or 2 anymore like it used to be, which, I mean, let's be realistic. 5's still pretty damn good in the world. And everything is high dollar, just point blank. So all of that together is what makes everything this entire year last minute. Certainly expect the same next year, if we're going to be drudging along the bottom here. So if we're going to continue that last minute world we're in because of the factors, talking with some guys across the country, we're kind of expecting, not your normal, hey, corn's $5 year end, but there will be some year end just because all the overflow of the last minute is there's going to be plenty of that pushed until after harvest. Then we know where we're at, and then there'll be some action. That's why there's, just looking at, dare me of all people say this, but looking at the data and what's happening out there in the marketplace, we're headed for that. If that doesn't happen, that to me is going to be a wow. I don't know what to do with my hands now.
Right. Yeah. No, you're right. And I think it just continues to move forward. It's going to have a the best way to put it. It's going to have an effect on how people think about things and move forward. The one thing I will say about this doesn't feel like. I feel like we're at the bottom of the market, and I've said that several times. And I think we're going to work our way through the rest of 25 on all the way through 26 into 27, and 27 we're going to start seeing some peak up. Even if lo and behold, corn price gets to $5.50 cash corn, right? I'm talking cash corn, on-board cash corn, and you're talking like $13, $14 beans type of thing, right? At that point,
right?
If that happened today, even if you went to 2026 order writing periods, you wouldn't see a change in the market until 27, because the amount of equipment, the new equipment that would get ordered, you're not going to see that till 2027, right? You can't order a new piece now unless there's inventory on the ground. You're not going to see. You're going to go place your order for 26 for 27 delivery.
I would even go a little bit further, Casey, and say if we hit that, I think we're going to clean up a heck of a lot more used,
and that's my point,
than any new.
Yeah.
I think because of everything happened in such a narrow window. Okay, you went from, oh my God, let's go buy machinery, to your tractor's not even here yet, and we signed up to do this on a 3-year deal, and I don't know if we can do year 2. But you make it work. And there is so much of that across the country that happens so fast and furious and then dropped off that I think it gave everybody a minute to breathe and actually look at numbers being spent, if you will, and go, ooh, all right, hold on.
Well, yeah. And the other side of that too, the flip side of that,
300 hours and 4 1/4, sure, cash flow's better than new. And 6 1/4.
But you also, I think the other option I think the ultimate outcome you're going to see tomorrow, if like that scenario just laid out happened today, and boom, we're good. They're just selling corn as fast as they can off the combine, getting all kinds of cash for the end of the year. The issue you're going to see with that is not going to be. It's going to be a lot like what you saw on the beef side and the Hayden Forge side, right? That time of the year now. Different animal, right? You're talking about ranchers and how they buy stuff.
Different animal up here. Yeah, I was just going to say, different animal up here, not the critters.
But at the same time, what was the thing that they did when they started making a ton of money selling cows? They paid down debt, they bought more cows, and they started looking at, okay, how do I expand my operation if I'm in that mode, right? How do I do these things? How do I do X, Y, and Z? And then they're like, oh yeah, I guess you probably should buy a new loader tractor. That was such an afterthought, right?
When is that coming yet?
But that's my point.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, you would think by looking at how that scenario is playing out, that you would get to that baler, windrower, rakes, 150 to basically 125 to 175 horsepower tractors, loader tractors, those kind of things. You think they would be in somewhat a sizzle mode right now, but it's not, right? They're not there, and because of that. I can promise. My view on things is when that money comes back to the farm, right?
Pocket.
They're going to be like, when the banker's going to be like,
right,
where's my money, right? You need to trim up your equity positions a little better. Hey, you need to do this. Hey, you need to do that, and then they're going to come start buying things. It goes right back to all the Purdue and Iowa State things you see where they, hey, Mr. Farmer, ranked your top 10 things what you're going to do this year on the farm. When I first started this, equipment was 1 or 2. Now it's almost out of the top 10, right?
Yeah.
Of things that people are going to do on the farm, right? It's like it was 2, then it was like 3 to 5, and now it's 7 or 8 now.
I would dare say this: it is such a contrast in mentality that the segment of producer, who has a positive income, is the buyer of what I would dare say is the softest segment out of all the machinery. The for deer, the 6s.
Sure.
The Maxims in case, the T6, T blue ones. I don't know, Fent 5 or whatever they call them. But I would dare say that, and that right there shows you the amount of contrast.
I like to think.
Because it's such a different mentality. We don't have to.
I like to think.
It still moves.
Yep.
There's no doors. What do we need doors for?
I like to think.
That's that world versus the corn was up a quarter today. Probably should trade combines.
Yeah, and it's a different animal.
And that's not because they want to trade combines. They probably have to. They can probably throw baseballs back and forth through the middle.
That's exactly it. I mean, the amount of componentry compared to on you're talking disc blades, whether you're talking
I like to think.
Opener blades or wheels or whatever it is you're talking about. It's all that stuff's all ground engaging, right? And then you run small BBs through the inside of your combine for 30 straight days, depending on how long your harvest is, right? And you're beating hell out of the inside of it. At the end of the season, you get done going like, I thought I was harvesting corn. I don't understand.
I like to think
why it's so like. Was there some baseballs in there that I missed?
Yeah. Boy, we used a lot of duct tape this year.
So many things like that make a big difference. So
I like to think.
Now, I would say this. The one thing, I'd say this for my Western counterparts, Mountain Time Zone to the West Coast.
I like to think
windrowers have been good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And on the ranch, that's the combine. So they have spent some money. A lot of it, at least in my experience, has been windrowers. I mean, guys that have a 2000 have upgraded to an 05 and, the 15 to a 20, and everybody's upgraded on up and down the chain.
I like to think.
But that's it. And that was a have to.
I like to think.
Of course, in that world, typically everything is a have to. It's not a want to.
I like to think.
The want to is the stock trailer.
Right.
A new dually. That's the want to. So it's a different world, but as you see the year start to tail off here,
I like to think
those guys are picking up the phone a little more.
I like to think
because everybody got paid and we still got half checks.
They've accomplished what they need to accomplish.
Right.
At least
we filled 2 cream cans and put them in the backyard. Paid the bank note. Now we can go have some fun.
Exactly. I think that's where we're at. So, all right, man. Good place to stop. Aaron, you want to see some more of your High Plains wholesale videos? What's the best place to do that?
You can catch High Plains Wholesale on, we have a Facebook page and a TikTok page. The TikTok one seems to be pretty popular. I also share the same video on my Facebook and my Twitter under Aaron Fintel. Call me, text me.
I like to think.
Right on. Catch me in Casey Seymour. You can find me anywhere podcasts are found. You can also go to the AgWeb page, check out podcasts there. You can find the podcast there, the Moving Iron podcast there. You can also go to Farm Journal's YouTube page and watch the video version of this as well. Check it out. Facebook,
I like to think.
X, Instagram, I don't know, wherever else I am, at Moving Iron LLC or Moving Iron Podcast. Check it out there. You can see all the fun stuff there. I'm pretty sure I'm on TikTok still. Check that out. So if you're looking for that there, check it out. You ever have any questions or anything you want to ask me or whatever you might have?
I like to think.
Send me a text message at 308-225-3305 and I will be sure to get back to you and we can check that out there. I want a special thanks, Aaron, for being on the podcast. Greg Machinery, Pete Peterson on the podcast, as well as Chip Mangler. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour. Let's go move some iron, folks. Out.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week. And remember, Moving Iron is available on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and anywhere podcasts are found. So until next time, let's move some iron.